June 5th, 2025. Commissioner Collins will lead us in the blessing and then we'll say the pledge. Commissioner Collins just asked, I talked to him. Tomorrow is the anniversary of D-Day when thousands of people, 1,000 men hit the beach. So we always, this meeting is usually sometimes, it's been on D-Day a couple times, but tomorrow is that day. I think, Commissioner Collins, you've actually been there. So we'll observe a moment of silence and honor those people. Also, I know tomorrow a team of students and professors from Lee University, about 40, I believe, are heading to Honduras for a 2-week mission trip. If you'll remember them as well. With that, if you would, please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome all members and the thousands and millions of people watching on the video. We're going to go to the mayor here in just 1 second, then I'll kind of go over the format of today, and then we'll take up our agenda items. So, Mayor, if you have anything, you're recognized.
Report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So, as you see your items here, first thing we're going to do is the final budget, kind of call them the true ups, so to speak, where you're basically moving money to make the lines and all add up. Then we'll get into the mayor's proposal, stuff like that. When we get into the mayor's proposal, we'll go through the funds, like we have the summaries, basically the fund balances and revenue projections estimated and expenses and stuff like that. If you wish to make any changes through a motion, obviously what fund we're working in, what account we're working in, and if it's an expense, what line, what you want to do. And we'll take it up, get a motion and get a second discussion and vote just like we do in the normal finance. But do say for the record what fund, what account, and what line, if applicable. Second thing to keep in mind, if you need Lori to do anything, sidebar kind of stuff, make sure she knows. And at the end, if she has anything, I'll have her repeat that. So if she needs to do something for us, she knows what she needs to do. So keep that in mind. All right. Going to item A, final budget amendments. You have, well, let me back up one quick. All the documents that we have printed out here, you have the resolution from 189 on the Hopewell and track right here for reference. And we have also, excuse me, the true ups, I believe, right here. Did we get these in electronic format? I didn't get a chance to see email last night. You sent them this morning? Okay, I didn't get a chance to see them on there. So we'll get to that here in a second. And the last thing you have here are the open POs for art money, Fund 128. I've been getting these monthly, and I appreciate that, Mayor, and reviewing that. So those are the documents you have with us right now. So let's go to item A, final budget amendments. And Mayor, I'll just ask the question that I guess is really, I wouldn't say the only question, but the one that I think needs is, when you did the true ups, were there any accounts that went over on their budget in this current budget?
Yes, can we talk about general fund first?
Sure,
Keep it-
sure.
Keep it separate.
Yeah,
If you go through, the blues will tell you if they're over or under. Is that correct, guys? Ladies, guys? The second page, the third page,
well, we don't really have the colors because it's, yeah, but I get your point.
well, I didn't print them for you, I don't believe, so if you see the bar out to the side and if it ends up being gray, then that's the same as blue, okay?
Gray is
Anyway,
blue.
that tells you the ones that had to go up or down. At the end of the day, there is $2,000 moved out of the fund balance. They were all offset within or somehow, except for $2,000. So the net, which you may not be used to hearing that, it's a good thing because usually it's a number bigger than that from the fund balance. So the net result is $2,000 from the fund balance with
the
all of
fund
the
level,
general
yeah.
fund.
And there's, the county commission, our account went over our,
Now yours
that what-
actually is under.
okay,
You see that? You've got 15 to the good, which was used in a few places to offset theirs.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, we were able to offset all of the changes except for $2,000. Is that correct? Okay.
All right, so the fund level, only a $2,000, that's
Right.
statistically, that's almost
It's
out to the
that's
fourth
really
digit.
good. It sounds like a lot. A lot of times it's a
Yes.
lot
It's a lot more.
at the end of
But-
the day.
My question is what accounts went over from what they were allowed and
Well,
what they spent?
let me go through and we'll see. And you guys make sure that I'm reading it right too. For example, 53,500 went over in their legal service line item, and so that one is over, right? That's that gray bar in your case. You go to the next page. The jail was over by $10,000. It was offset somewhere, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah,
it
they
was
are.
technically over. Juvenile detention was under just a little bit. The bug grant was over just a little bit, but it was taken from somewhere else. And then I guess
mean-
that's all in general fund.
So,
Well, tourism and industrial development, we always correct that.
yeah, that would
We've
cover
got that done. That's a flow through for those that don't know. And so if revenues come in more than we projected, we increase revenues to match and then offset it with the same amount for expenses. So it makes it look like it was over, but yeah.
Yeah.
So there's none of those issues we've had before at the end of the day.
Then, correct me if I'm wrong, the bug grant, if they went over on their grant, and it doesn't look like much, but did the tax money have to fund their
Did
overage?
you find out about that one? I'm looking to them. We had several grants. You guys want to talk about hiring grant writers all the time. We should talk about hiring grant administrators because most of these grant
I agree
administrators
with
don't
you
know
100%.
nothing about the budget.
As we found out with,
So
the
we have all
sheriff's
kinds of
office.
problems with them, and we can't fix them outside of. So what did we do with the bug one? That was the bug. Well, but his point is we're funding the bug grant more than we had in there with tax money. Is that what we did there? And these people don't, I don't really care if they're watching. They don't follow it throughout the year. They don't work for me. They're grant people that once we get, and we've got lots and lots of grants, which is why I don't say we need a grant writer like some of you say. We got lots of grants out there, but they don't follow the budget. They don't see, they were over in salaries. One of them was over in salaries and they should have known it 2 or 3 months ago they were. They don't fix it. We were able to fix them, like she said, by canceling some POs and fixing it, and this one wasn't fixable, but yet it's got to be fixed. So I guess, yes, we did that with this one.
I think
And that was what grant, what bug grant, what department is that in? Is it in juvenile? So juvenile went over in one of their grants and juvenile had to pay for it, so it amounts to.
Yeah, if they,
But it's still using tax money
Yeah.
for an overage in a grant.
I mean, I'm not a grant expert, but if I award you a grant, then you know all the variables up front.
Right.
I mean,
And
I,
part of it is salaries, so make sure the salaries don't go over, because we can't really
what am I
fix it
missing?
from somewhere else. But
Yeah. So, I'm not gonna harp on this too much, but does the author or the grantor or whatever it's called, I don't, the bug grant's been there forever, it seems like. Do they get notified that the recipient of the grant went over?
I don't know.
not trying
That's
to
what
punish
she
them,
meant.
but-
The monitoring audit or whatever you call it might give them issues. They have lots of issues sometimes too, but that's outside of us. That's
Yeah.
the state saying, "Hey, you've got issues here."
All right, so the general fund, 2,000 out of the fund balance.
The end result
and
is
that's
that,
it.
and we're only fixing it because we got, like she said, we're going to have our books fixed. They may still have issues with the state on those grants. Is what I'm saying.
All right,
Because we move money around, they approve those budgets, the state does, and we move money around without the state pre-approving those moves. We had to move it, so that's between them and the state to get them happy. I don't, you know,
well, I wonder when they get their next allotment of grant money, if they'll reimburse the property tax owners. But anyway, do I have a motion?
it's a small amount for the record, but
I
at the
get
same
it.
time, it is technically,
I get it. So let's adopt this true up on General Fund 101. So do I have a motion to accept the true up from General Fund as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Mason. I have a second from Commissioner Slater. Any further discussion on the true up? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. All right, Mayor, next fund you want to go to on the true ups?
I think the next one is what, opioid? Is that right with you all?
111?
Yeah.
All right.
Number, opioid, no issues. Drug fund,
Yeah, because they watch the opioid like a hawk. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have, from what I understand, you have the young lady who was emailing us. You got Bentley corresponding with her on her report request.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the drug fund, for losing my train of thought, is actually a savings, so that wasn't a problem, right? I look at them because I'm just make sure if I say it wrong. On the fire fund, actually, a savings. It's a decrease in their fund balance, so they actually, I guess you would say went over, but fixable within their fund. Debt service was a decrease, but fixable within its fund also.
So on fire, how much do we have to go into their fund balance to?
That 179, you see that bar out to the right of
No,
it, that 179 is
I'm
the
looking at
difference.
you. I wasn't looking at this.
Yeah, okay. It's 179,000.
179 over their, they have what, 2 accounts? Or they have 2 funds, but we use one fund to the other fund.
Expense-wise, there's just one.
Where do they go over?
Well, if you're, property tax was a little bit less than projected.
Okay.
Revenues were,
There's nothing they can do about that.
is roughly what's down, is that correct? It's revenues that were down.
There's nothing they can do about that.
No, there's nobody in any of these to really
I guess that's the
quote
better,
fuss about this
that's
year.
a better question to ask. Who went over on their expense side? I mean,
Well, those grant ones were the
yeah,
biggest.
okay.
And
So-
so, debt service, see if I'm interpreting this one right. Property tax is, down a little bit. Trustee collections is down quite a bit from prior year. Payment in lieu of down. Bank excise tax is down. So it's all taxes too. So debt service was a little bit under collected.
The private tax is down on that fund, it's down on,
So we're adjusting
Fire.
revenues is all we're doing in
Yeah.
that one. We're not adjusting expenses. And,
Yeah.
and really in both, well, in that one, it's all revenue, right? So it's all revenue projection. We must have been okay on the debt, on the expense side, right?
yeah, that should be all scheduled. I mean, for the most part.
Yeah, but you gotta understand the schedule has a lot of variable rate in there, so it
But
gets a little scary, but we've been able to project or budget more than it has
And
done
that's,
to us
yeah,
so
I
far.
remember that years and years ago, we had a little spread between what we budget and what, even with variable, there's a spread between the two.
Yeah, I think we still budget 5%, and as a whole year, it hasn't gone that high.
All right, so 151, good.
And then you go on to rescue plan. Uh, investment was up, as you probably know. Um,
Oh, the interest we make off the principal? Yeah, we'll chat about that.
yeah.
But-
And the one line in vehicles was more than we had budgeted. Is that correct?
But all those are,
Okay. Do I?
all those are, you enter into a contract, right, with whoever you're purchasing something for, so they should know the amount they can spend from the get-go.
Starting January the 1st, we did, yes, to meet that federal deadline.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so 128.
128 is okay, but and actually is better because we got additional revenue to offset anything. The 124 fund, a little bit less revenue, so it was a $10,000 amendment. 172 fund, more revenue is basically what we're doing there. 189 fund,
That one's good.
investment income was the biggie there that was up, so it's additional
Yeah, I've been
revenue.
watching that one.
And then your hospital fund account, investment income was down a lot. I don't see why it would be, but anyway, the amendment reflects that your investment income was down.
That catches me off guard. We'll have to look into that.
376,000 worth too. That's when you really ought to look at it.
Yeah, we rolled over. Sorry, Lloyd. We remember how much did we had what 700,000, and the grant committee, I think it was like 100,000 that rolled over. So 120,000 may make up, but that'd be interesting to see what CDs didn't come in. But we'll do that in August. I mean, it is what it is.
In this year.
Makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So that could be why it's down.
Yeah,
when
it's a
everything
timing
else is
thing.
up.
Yeah, and his are all CDs. If they were to come due in July, for example, we
You-
won't get it this year. It's next year, so.
Yeah, and he called me and I said, he goes, "Are you guys going to use something?" And I was like, "Probably not." So I think he invested it for 6 months or something like that. Because I just talked to Ellen yesterday. School's interest is way up. All right, that should be all the funds. We can take those up as a one motion.
That is, and before you vote, not to make light of them this year, because some years I say, guys, did you notice how much we changed? This year is very, very small, almost nothing. So the
Yeah.
end result's good. They won't say that because that's why you didn't get your thing last night. You got it this morning. They were working late on it, but it's also both of them's first year with these particular funds too. So
I guess I just admitted I didn't get a chance to look at it last night. So
well, that's a
I
good
should have
thing
said,
because
"Dang it, why didn't I get it last night?"
that they first said we're going to have to tell them we don't have them all done. I said, no, get them all done even if you don't meet their deadline. And so they did. So it worked out pretty good. I appreciate them doing that and really feel good about the fact there's not much
Yeah,
change.
there's nothing you can do about revenue not coming in. That means you're going to get it in the next year because
A lot of times it does, yeah, especially on those interest things.
All right, let me get a motion and get a second. I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Collins. Any further discussion? We kind of had a discussion before the motion. How about that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. That should conclude all of the amendments for the year, right? There's no more amendments coming between now and June 27th.
We don't plan on any, But we do have that reserve
I
this
said
year.
that the way I said that just because last year, or was it year before, there were amendments like on the very last day.
If we find something that we haven't found yet, it will, if, were you told to do a special call meeting or okay. Make sure when you do the special call meeting that it's in there for the, because you can only do the purpose that's announced.
But,
And this is one of those purposes, and that's just a safeguard in case.
right, but I don't think it's a special call meeting though. It's a
Oh.
regular scheduled
I-
meeting that we've changed the date on.
No, I think it really is, Mylan, but it's a play of words. But still, you'd be safe. You treat it as a special call
I
meeting.
mean,
You
we'll
won't have no
put,
question. I
it's
think
on
that's
there,
probably.
but
And I didn't talk to her. She was supposed to be talking to Lori, but I think that was the result.
yeah, it's half dozen.
You
six
treat it
dozen.
as a special call meeting. The only difference is you're meeting for a purpose. You state those purposes. And of course, your purpose is to approve the budget resolutions, to approve the tax rate resolutions, and any last minute end of the year amendments. And so that's all we're coming that day to do anyway. As long as that's stated in your call, then we're okay.
Right. But my point, not to belittle, is if it's a regular, if it's a special call, you can only take up the things that's the special call. What if next week at work session, well, I guess it would be on there, but I mean, or during committee and districts, you wanted to make a motion to do something, or you had a resolution at the very last minute, you couldn't take those up.
Mm.
So anyway, we'll get with the parliamentarian. That should do it, right, on the true ups? Okay,
Yep.
all right. And I think we might have broke a record on speed there, so we'll make it up on the item B. Huh? You're not gonna? We'll make it up on the B. All right. Mayor's proposal, we all got the mayor's proposal on Monday. We'll go through the funds. You got your budgets here. And we'll start here at the very beginning. I'm gonna hand the meeting over to the mayor, because I always have a few little easy ones that I like to see if there's any support for, as I get my notes here. Mayor, I'm gonna hand this over to you if you don't mind, like we did in years past, so I can just make a motion and see if we can make one or two little tiny changes here, so. all
Okay.
yours,
Do you want me to go individually around?
If you don't mind.
Okay.
So, on page 8, County Commission Fund 101, account 51100, line 307. I make a motion to add $12 to line 307, which is $1 per month increase for our cell phone, our employee cell phone. I put that in the form, do we need,
So instead of 490, it's going to be 502?
it's gonna be, is that right? Okay, yeah. Yes, sir. 502, that's my motion. So it's a whole whopping $12 increase in that line. Yes, sir. 307.
It changes the bottom to 531, 649. You guys got that right? Okay, go ahead. What else?
Oh, I didn't, see if I get a second or.
Oh, yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise?
Thank you,
Motion
Mayor.
passes.
The next one is on page 10, the Beer Board, Fund 101, account 51220, line 191. Mayor, I move to increase the pay for the 7 Beer Board members by $1 per meeting. They meet once a month, and they have 7 members. I move to increase this line by $84 for the total line budget of $2,884. Put that in form of motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Is this one that has to be approved by you all to do a raise, Beer Board? I'm just asking, it
How did I
seems
do
like it might be,
How did I
is
do
it?
it last year? I forget.
be sure and ask Crystal if there has to be a separate resolution approved. We'll have the budget done if there does, we can still
Yeah,
address
this
it,
is
but.
the accounting piece
it's-
of it.
So you're changing, on page 10, Louis, we're changing 191, line 191 to $2,884. The bottom line to $3,098, right? Any other questions or comments? Not, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, go ahead, Marlon.
All right, this one, I know the chairman, not a voting member of the committee, I believe, but, you'll recognize him, and I'll, but what this was about, we talked about this the other day. Legislative body, county commission, we cannot give ourselves a raise throughout the years, throughout the budgets. If I'm understanding the law or what have you. But the idea, and we talked about this the other day, is to put the money in the line so that it's there on September 1, 2026, when the next commission comes in. We had the numbers here, but did you guys, I'm looking at you guys, did you guys look and see if we're allowed to do that, or? 'Cause we talked about it the other day.
No, we haven't done any additional, I don't think, have we? I'm thinking from memory what I was telling you the other day. When we asked the auditors a year or two ago, they said you shouldn't put more than you're paying, but I don't know that it would be a finding if we do. It was just something to that effect, and we never pursued it, so.
So can we go ahead with this, and if they say we can't, we'll pull it back out?
Yeah, I guess so. Be sure one of you guys talk to the auditors and ask them. Tell them they're wanting to fund their salary line item more than they're actually going to get paid. Prepare for a salary increase in the future. Is that kosher? Okay, is that a motion? Do I have a second?
Yeah, let me give you the numbers,
Okay.
because we're going by what you're doing for everybody at 3%. So if the math is correct, I moved to add 3%, which totals $4,909.41 to line 191. And the motion, I guess, will say this will go into effect on September 1, 2026. The new line will be $168,556.41.
Say it again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll start again. I moved to add 3%, which should total $4,909.41 to line 191 that will collect or become available, or the effective date, September 1, 2026. Now the new total will be $168,556.41. That's my motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Louis? Do you? Okay.
And, Chairman
Questions or
Krajicek.
comments?
Yes, let me make a few comments here. We are, as commissioners, we're permanent employees or full-time employees. And by law, we can't collect the salary that we voted on. So that's the reason that this has come up. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but I believe the county employees also received a 3% salary increase in each of the past two fiscal years, 2023 and 2024, 2024 and 2025, in an effort to allow county commissioners to maintain the same pace of adjustments as county employees. I offer a substitute motion to increase the commission line 191 by 9%, represented an increase of $14,729 to be available for use on September the 1st, 2026. If I could ask that Commissioner Blake consider that.
A motion by you and a second by who? Mr. Alford? So the motion is changed to 9% increase. Do you second that? Do I have a second? All right. You second it? Motion fails and goes back to 3%. Questions or comments?
So I do have a question. So if we can't vote ourselves a pay increase, and hypothetically we run again, how does that work for the 25-26 budget?
What they're saying is that the money will be budgeted, it'll be there and not spent because you don't have the authority to spend it. And then next year, if you do another 3%, it'll be there and you'll have a special resolution that increases your pay and you would start spending it September the 1st.
I still don't understand how that works if we can't vote ourselves a pay increase.
You're voting to increase the line in case you vote to give yourself a raise in the future, is the best I can say. Yeah. Because the law says you can vote yourself a raise, you can vote the next commission a raise, you can't vote the current commission a raise. So you can't give yourself a raise, but next year you can vote to give the next commission a raise. And then if you're still here, you get that raise. Does that make sense?
But you go ahead and put it in the budget now.
That's the motion, yes. Any other questions or comments? And we're at 3%, right? That's the motion we're on, right? So all those in favor say aye for the 3% increase.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So it passes 3 to 2 for a 3% increase in the commission's line item. Not called a raise yet, it's a 3% increase in the line
With the
item.
instruction to payroll that they continue, obviously, with current rate for
Right,
all
they will
the-
be
for this
told no
term.
raises for commissioners. They
Yeah.
know that though.
Okay.
So that's a 4,909.41 increase or lowering of the fund balance. Okay, next change, Marlon.
That is all I have, Mayor, is, that I needed to make. Go ahead. Well, Mayor, that's all I have. You can-
Okay, all right. Yes, sir, Commissioner.
Sir,
You can
say
take it back
for
after that.
example, we go back to that, we got 3%, 26, okay? Could we go out 2 years on your budget and say 3% in 26, then go another 3% to 27? And make it 6% overall in a 2-year span?
You can't, the motion he had was to put it all in there at this time, and that's the only thing you can do at this time is this year's budget. Again, you're increasing the line more than it needs to be for future use. I understand what you're doing, and you could increase it more than that, but only this year. You can't increase next year's. I mean, for example, next year's could be zeroed back to the original amount, and you'd be voting on it all over again. The
Yeah,
way it
that's-
should happen is you vote for the money at the same time you vote for the raise. But I understand what you're wanting to do. You're wanting to have the money there in place so it's not such a big budget increase
Exactly.
at that
So,
time.
I mean, if you were to go 3%, so.
Yeah.
Obviously, 4-year terms, if you had, I can't remember what the increase was the last couple of years. It's usually been around 3%. So if you were to do 3% on top of 3% on top of 3%, that would be a pretty big increase for the next commission. This kind of makes it a little bit more palatable.
Budget-wise, you're preparing for that to happen.
Right. I mean, the debt service, I mean, the fund balance, yeah, it'll take on paper, but you're not going to, you're knowing that you're not going to spend it, so it'll go kind of back into the fund
It'll be
balance.
one of those end-of-the-year amendments where they lower the expense in the
But
commission line.
it's more, I wouldn't say cosmetic or anything. It's just, it's preparing the budget for, I mean, next year, they may not be an increase, but this will be in there. And in September 1, obviously it'll be prorated because the budget goes into effect July 1, so July and August of 26 next year.
10 months.
It won't go into, the effective date is September 1 when the new commission is sworn in. And that's the idea, is to make it a little bit more. So you didn't have this 3-3-3-3, which would be obviously, if 12% increase, that would be a big hit. So you're basically making it a little bit more palatable. That's the idea. Right, Jimmy? Right.
So anyway, the 3% increase passed 3-2, and that was all you had.
That's all
Right.
I have right now,
All
that I
right,
reserved.
let's
Right.
going around. Cindy, you want to go next? What changes or questions do you have? All right, move over to Tim.
I think all mine were, I think we've already answered the calls and different things that I got in. I think we're good.
Okay, go around here to Mr. Alford.
Line item.
It's up to you.
Budget, when you get started on that,
Yeah,
I don't have any changes.
well, we're
in
gonna,
this
we're gonna go
budget
through the
right here.
funds here in a second,
Yeah.
Mayor, so if
Okay.
he's got something, we'll take it up later.
I've got something when we get to the funds.
Different funds.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anything on general fund then at this time? Nothing? Denny, you have anything?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, you want to take it back now, or you gonna
Yeah.
keep discussing?
No, we're good. I'll take it. So on the summary sheet, you used to call it page 6, now it's page 7. Yeah, it's page 7, so it's a summary sheet. So Mayor, your projection on, well, let me get my bearings here, because eyes aren't good. Total amount of revenue with all revenue sources and the fund balance beginning of the year. Total available funds, 61,623,421. That was what we did in this year, and you're projecting your proposal 62,438,638 less 49,605 of 049. Goodness. At one time, I know Renee told me what that one-time capital purchase thing was, but it's 270,000. For total expenditures of 49,881,240. 240. Fund balance reserves 1,877,872. Unreserved fund balance 10,843,654. Total fund balance projected of 12,557,399. And you obviously the other night said don't lower it. But what does that should be within policy? Our policy is what, 15% of general fund?
That's roughly 25, which is my personal policy.
Oh, your personal.
That's what it takes to pay the bills between
I
now
get
and
it. I
December,
get it.
unless you
I
want
know.
to
I
borrow
had
money.
to explain that to a constituent the other day.
I'll explain it to them. Unless you want to borrow money, you need that much money to
I
pay
did.
bills.
We said that right there, and I told her, I was like, you got.
We have
bill-
had
you
to
got-
borrow
I
before,
did.
so I mean, there's
You
proof
can
in the
ask
pudding.
Lori. I told her. I
Our
said,
payroll is what,
but anyway,
$1 million twice a month?
12.5 million is our projected fund balance at the end of this budget, if the budget was to be adhered to. So that's the main thing that we're going to talk about with the funds. So that's the revenue. What did I have a question on? 729,000. Oh, on page 4, Mayor, it's just, I know, I just found this interesting. Investment income, a line, or account, I'm sorry, 44110, investment income. In the current budget, we projected 795,600. Looks like, the next column over, and that next column over is basically year-to-date, so to speak, right? I mean,
It's his projection through June the 30th, but not
Yeah.
audited.
yeah. And then you're, per the trustee, saying 1,173,000. And that's good because that's an increase, but I guess I'm maybe with you when you asked a question a few minutes. If we got 1.4 million in the current budget, wouldn't you be pretty much close, if not more? The interest rates on our investment should be about the same. I'm just wondering why the difference, I guess.
I
Or is
think the
that something that you're taking?
prediction is interest rates to go down somewhat. Now, Mike has most all of it in 6-month CDs, so that's not a big factor, but based on his spread of his CDs and based on the projection that when they come due, they're expecting them to go down somewhat, because we're during that good time of inflation down, but that also brings interest rates down. So as you get less interest rates on your home loan, we get less interest rates on our investment too. So he's projecting it to be down some, but not much.
Not much, but I just thought there shouldn't be much difference between the investment vehicles between the current year and the next year. I mean,
Well, if a 6 months CD drops from 4.3 to 4%, for example, that's a few dollars when you're talking about millions. So anyway, that's
that's the
That's
only
his.
question I had on there. Any questions on any of the? We're not going to. We used to go through every single account through the general fund. I had some notes here on. I don't have another question until we get to the landfills, I guess. Yeah, landfill. I got some questions in 189. So, you got anything in general fund, Commissioner Mason? I know you just asked. I need some notes here. As you mentioned the other day, elections, there's only one election in the next budget. I did notice, Mayor, assessor of property, I guess, he's moving some people around in his lines, whatever, but like you said the other night, and it shows here, the net is the same, but he's reclassifying some employees with
yeah,
with
he re-
GIS and his clerical or
he
something like that.
reclassified everybody in his department, plus he moved a part-time position from GIS to his department, which increased the line. There's a lot of moving around in this budget. I hope we've stayed on top of all of them. We've tried to, but that one's fairly simple. The two lines got combined, plus some came from GIS, and then the 3% was on top of that, hopefully accurately. Is that right? Sound right, guys?
So he's basically reclassifying, but I saw he's moving money from one down and one up.
When you get to juveniles, she moved money all kinds of ways to better use it where it's more appropriate.
the
But it's hard to
YSOs,
follow all that, I'm telling you.
the YSOs. I saw,
Yeah.
You said
On
so.
page 6, so if you would look at it while you're there, I don't mean to interrupt, but there's
Yeah.
something new there, and sort of in the middle of the page, 46,990, other state revenues. This is a guess, but the state, as recent as last week or two, has agreed that they will fund the cost of the election on May the 5th. Now, that's not the budget, that's just, so what I did is I pulled out the amount of the election workers and put it here as revenue.
That is new. That's a primary. Yeah.
I know, but they've said they will. They won't pay the salaries and they won't pay those kinds of things, but the true cost of that one day that supposedly they will, after it's all said and done, they'll reimburse us for it. So that is noted right here, but it's a guess amount. I'm hoping it's a bigger amount than that. It should be, but they, for example, may not even use that many election workers. That's a guess expense too. But if they use all of them, we'll get that number back plus a few other little things.
Oh, I didn't know
So that's
that.
good news, and hopefully it'll be $100,000 good news.
And there's no cap on that, correct? They've agreed to fund.
The way I understand it, they just said they would reimburse for the cost of that day's election.
And if it's like the presidential primary, it's just the labor and
Yeah.
some other things.
Just that day's cost. I mean, they
Yeah.
don't pay Fran's salary and Rachel's salary and stuff like that, or benefits, but the cost that day is what they usually come up with, and you can't predict what that number is, but I've acknowledged it there anyway.
Would they pay for the cost of the early voting precincts that we use?
I'm not sure. That's a
Yes.
Fran question. I think they will, but I don't want to speak for them.
Good.
To me, that's the cost of that day's election.
It's
But yeah.
required by law, so.
And those, well, not 4 of them. We don't
Oh,
have to do 4 early election locations, but those election workers that I'm talking about are partly in those days. So yeah,
Yeah, you're right. You only have to have one location.
Right. We
have
do
3.
4 when we're only required to do 1, so
Yeah.
we're way ahead there.
But you had to have early voting is what I was saying. So
Yeah, so I'm sure they will. They could say, hey, we're only going to do 1 because that's all you're required to do, but I don't think they will.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
what they've done on that in the past,
the
too.
presidential primary, they just fund it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they will.
All right, that's good to know. I missed that. I didn't know that. I don't know why they didn't mention that up in Gatlinburg the other day. That would have been good to know. All right.
That's probably been since then. That
Oh.
was, 2 weeks ago, and at least we got notified since then.
Buildings. All right, Mayor, if you'll go to page 23, this is just a technical question, but on page 23, he has a line of 30,000 and 169, which is a wage line. On
Yeah.
page 23, I'm sorry. Yeah,
That is
30,000.
Stanley's reappraisal, and I don't know how that works, but
But if you have you have to have Social Security and the other 201, if you're going to pay wages.
I know that, and I don't know if he's thinking that he has enough in his regular one to cover it. I don't know. I can't
And I
speak for
guess
him.
I thought about that. I was like, well, he may have some in another account, but then you get really messy. Why don't we do centralized Social Security all the way through? And I chatted with him, and he said that may be contracted services or something like that, which would be a totally different line.
Yeah, that's why I didn't question it with him. I didn't call him about it because I don't know how that works. I know it's part-time. It may be 25,000, not 30 either. That's just
Yeah.
the amount they put there for it, but
But my point is,
I don't
if
know.
it is a salary, then you do need to have in the account.
yeah,
that it's
even if
coming
it was
from.
part-time, you'd have Social Security costs, you're right, but it must work somehow differently is all I know.
All right, so that, like I said, it's a technical thing, really. I mean, all right, we're gonna fly here on these. Stop me if we go through here. Juvenile, you talked about juvenile and all the changes they made. Anything you want to bring to our attention? Otherwise, we'll just keep going. I mean,
No,
we looked at it for about an hour the other day.
yeah, you could uh, I like what she's doing. She's trying to get it more correct, but it sure does make it hard when I'm trying to do my thing. So I try to follow all those lines, and if we've got it right, once they move to the various locations, then we added the 3% onto it. And now there are a few places that you don't get that 3% to come out, and that's because they may have 3 positions, one of them's vacant. Well, we don't give the vacant person a raise, so 2 of them got a raise, and the other one didn't. So when you do a line calculation, you don't get the 3%. There's some of those scattered throughout. But I think we've got all of hers. It could possibly be an amendment coming if we miss something, but I think they're okay. And I know you had a question about the 5,000. She did leave 5,000 in a line when she moved the money. She moved the money, but left 5,000 where it's at. I don't know why, but
So
wasn't a big
somebody's
deal.
gonna get paid $5,000 a year.
I don't know. That's a Vicky question that I didn't take the time to ask because I was okay with the overall budget. So.
I mean, anything, you kind of talked about this the other night on the sheriff and the jail and the workhouse. I know there's been some chat coming from over there to consolidate the workhouse and the jail.
They want them
That's
combined.
probably something we do in a couple of months if we
Yeah.
want to do that.
It got so late in the process that I told Cassandra I wasn't going to have the combined budget for my proposal. She will probably be coming in August with a huge amendments that puts it all together, and that will be a good thing because there's no need to have it separated anymore. It's a third budget that we don't need. Tracking it to see if revenues pay for the expenses is long gone. That don't happen, never did happen, not going to happen. The hotel is not self-supporting. So we've got the revenue coming in, what little there is, but it's not enough to offset the cost of the hotel. I've always called it a hotel because we rent the rooms, but so we need to combine it. It would simplify Cassandra's job and mine too next year at budget, but I didn't get it done during the budget process.
okay, the hotel. Well, I would just say we put it in its own budget for the I mean, the intentions were exactly the way you just described. It's just after what, 10 years? It happened when I first got on.
It's been
It's just
close to it.
better for everybody, her, us, if the workhouse just moves over. It's kind of like
She
your,
just,
kind of
she
like your
j-
fire where you don't need to have two funds, and we'll
yeah.
work on that.
And it causes her to have to pay for various things out of 3 different places and things like that. There's no need
So-
for it. We, like you said, we only did it so we could track it to see if the hotel was gonna pay for itself. But when you got 2 or 3 people staying in the hotel that are working people, making money and paying us rent, it ain't ever gonna happen. I knew it wouldn't, and it hadn't, but it's an addition to the jail that was needed, and that's what it should have been called from day one, but anyway.
Real quick, on page 51, I chatted with Troy briefly. There's some additional expenses that he's budgeting for as he moves into it. 911 is pretty much always paid, the light bill, the internet bill, and that kind of stuff. Now he's going to have to incur that, so that's kind of why you're going to see the numbers on that.
Yeah, he's got several additional
So-
lines that are for 9 months. That's the projected time. It may not be 9 months, maybe 8 if he don't get the grant. He's only partially moving in, but he will start having utility bills and some of those things. And of course, this one at the end of the day is an 80-20 also, so.
Yeah, the city pays 20%. And some of my fellow commissioners are gonna like this, the page 58 per the contract. EMS, Adam's here, if you have any questions on that. I did see over on the revenue projection, and we got the email that collections is up. I chatted with Adam the other day. His billing office is really caught up on a lot of outstanding stuff, and the rates he's adjusted those accordingly. But the overall revenue for the year is 5.4 million. I think that's pretty good. I don't think in my time I've ever seen it 5.4 with confidence. So I think that's a good thing. It's worth mentioning. We've had it at 5, but we never got to 5, and we had to reduce
And
it.
even better than that, it's
So I think that's worth
revenues are
mentioning.
up and the
Yeah.
number of calls are down because of a lot of changes he's made. So that's overall a good thing. Let me mention on the employees while we're there,
Yeah.
like the sheriff's department, we froze them at ambulance, and we froze them at ambulance before we did sheriff's department, with the understanding that when you're fully staffed, we will start replacing. Adam might argue that we've not replaced any yet, and we haven't replaced any paramedics. Part of my rationalization in my mind is we're starting to replace them because that third line in his budget didn't used to be there, and now it is. That's 2 positions, or it's 2 starting January, 1 now and 1 in January. So I rationalize that that's 2 of those frozen, but either way, we've got other frozen positions to unfreeze in the near future if they stay fully staffed. But again, those revenues are up, calls are down with fewer staff than they had 3 and 4 and 5 years ago. Not fewer staff, but fewer positions because they were vacant positions. So they didn't really lose anything, but they did lose the positions, and we turned it into raises. And that's what I used to convince the sheriff to do the same thing, because we had done it at ambulance and it worked really well. You take your vacant positions, Denny, and fund the ones that are working a little bit more. You didn't lose anybody because they weren't there to start with, but we also promised to start putting them back. We've put, I believe, 3 back at the jail now, but in my mind, we've put 1.5 back at ambulance, but they weren't paramedics, but they were. He's got a captain and a training officer is the new positions, but if it was between Adam and I would say, well, you chose captain and training officer, but that's 2 of your frozen positions, and I doubt that he would agree, but I know Steve wouldn't. But see, Steve, we unfroze in my mind 2 last year. He'd say 1 because one of them was an SRO. But I did call Steve up and I said, "You're getting 2 new positions. Are they unfrozen positions?" No, one of them's got to be an SRO. So he got 2 positions, but only one of them was a frozen position. So we have those discussions a lot with the various departments, especially on that subject. But the intent is to put them back at some point as we can. Steve's is more formal. His lays out that you're supposed to put X back a year. We're not meeting that goal, but at least we're attempting and trying, and he's working with us. Now that he's fully staffed, adding one to his fully staffed is better than he used to be. I mean, he's doing pretty good right now out there.
All right, anything else on EMS? Adam, I'm sorry, Commissioner Alford?
Nothing on the budget, just a concern. I mentioned it to you, Mayor, the other day when we talked about EMS, about this split 80-20. We pay 80 and city pays us 20.
That's EMA.
EMA, I'm
yeah.
sorry, EMA, and I guess you said it goes all the way back to George Woods or something when they did that policy. I just like to put it on the agenda for a future work session, discuss that a little more. I just think, Adam, we have a lot of city calls, don't we? A lot of city calls.
Well, keep in mind now, keep them separate because EMS they don't split any.
Yeah.
And I assume, yeah, most of our calls are in the city. That don't mean they're a city resident, but they're in the city. And every ambulance is set up like everything ought to be. It's one department for the county as a whole, and it's paid for by the county as a whole. It's a shame everything's not like that. You know, there's no duplication. If you live in the city, you pay a tax that helps offset their additional costs. Same thing with me. If I'm wrecked in the city, they pick me up. I don't mean I was a city, but I was picked up in the city. They don't care when they pick them up. So it works great. But it's not joint funded. Ambulance is funded by either the user, and then I guess you would say the balance is paid for by the taxpayer. We bring in $5 million, and the budget's what, Adam? 7. So the taxpayer's having to fund some there, but our goal is to be self-sufficient, which you can't be, but don't mind. That's good that that's your goal. But we have a $7 million budget, and we bring in $5.5 million. But the taxpayers, city and county, pay that difference.
Right.
But it's not part of the 80-20. That's EMA.
Okay. That's the one I want to discuss at a later date,
Well,
maybe.
I just ask on that subject. When I first got here, we were under contract. We have 50-50 with the library, 50-50 with Community Services Agency, 50-50 with 911, and then we have several that are 80-20. Now, nobody disliked that city manager many, many years ago any more than I did. He was awful to deal with, and that was really his plan. But that was agreed to by the city and county, and it was like a contract. And when I came along, that contract ended. And the city and county, ever since I've been here, unofficially, not you guys, have agreed to continue that. So if you were to have a meeting and you start bashing the city, they may not do the 20. They're not obligated to do any. There's no contract. We're not obligated to do any. But it's working really well. I mean, I wish they were all 50-50 if you made me God for a day, but they're not. They never have been, and I doubt they ever will be. But if we make them upset over one subject, even though you might want to, overall it may end up hurting us because they're not obligated to pay any of some of those things. So just be careful with it. That's all I'm asking. 50-50 is ideal. 80-20 is not bad. This budget here, I do the budget. They don't even question it. They know I'm conservative, and they just accept it and pay 20% of it. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty good. And it's for them and us, but we have to have emergency management. They don't. So I mean, they can walk away from some of these things. So again, I hope they're not even watching now. But if they are, I hadn't said anything bad. Be careful, because what we have now isn't bad. You can single out one little section and say it should be more. For example, library should be 80-20 city, but it's 50-50. I'm happy with it 50-50 because if you start the argument, it could go the other way. Does that make sense? I mean, seriously.
What other ones do we have at the 80-20 that I can think of, or you can think of real quick?
Huh?
I can't think of anything else that's 80-20.
Veterans Affairs is 80-20. EMA, what else? There's about 8 things that are joint, and I'm not sure. And then library, community services, 911 are 50-50, so that's 5. There's 1 or 2 more. What would they be?
Well, we don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Just
Recycling,
something I think we need to think about.
Recycling is one that we added, by the way. It wasn't even in the original, but when they dropped curbside recycling, they started giving us a token amount to help toward us because we added a location. I assume they're still doing that. I hope they are.
They contribute to KAB the same amount we contribute to.
KAB's a 50-50, yeah. So that's a sixth one. Main Street, is that a 50-50?
And then, well, if you want to include IDB, I mean, and they contribute also to,
Well, IDB, if we have a special project, they don't
Yeah.
contribute the amount of money we do from hotel motel. But on either
Right.
that or tourism, that's an argument I don't want to have either. But we contribute with hotel motel money a lot on those two subjects. Sethra, I think it's just an agreement with us and Sethra because they probably fund a lot more than we do, and it's mostly city. So Main Street's a 50-50 one, and Fort Hill what 50-50. So I guess you've only got two that are 80-20, and both of those, if I was city manager, I would say, well, just forget it. We're not paying them at all because they don't have to. That's my point. So a lot of times those discussions don't help, at least not public discussions. You know what I'm saying? Even when George Wood was here, we had those discussions. We argued a lot, I can tell you that. But obviously, on those two, I didn't have a lot of argument because I knew they didn't have to do anything. Now, there's some we don't have to do anything either, but most of them we do. We're required to give to most of those. Or we wouldn't have to give a Main Street. We wouldn't have to give a what's another one there? They're not required. They're not doing the Boys and Girls Club, are they? I think we just took that one on a couple years ago. I don't think that's even in a 50-50. We just did it from memory. But anyway, I've said enough on that subject, but please be careful. I'm just saying.
You mentioned a lot of other stuff that we don't have to do on this 50-50 stuff too.
Yeah, there's some, but
It's a
most of them
two-way
we
street,
would.
The way I look at a lot of that stuff.
We would have to, with EMA, unofficially, they've agreed to go with us through the project that he's doing. The increase in the budget is the ongoing expenses, but there's going to be some, when we ever get the grant, there might be some matching money that needs to go with that, and they will be with us on that because they see it as their thing too. So as long as we keep the partnership there, it's a lot better than it going away, I'm telling you.
all right. You good? All right. Good talk. Page 69. The only thing I'll say on this, this is more future, but the conversation again, I think we're now able to talk with a little bit more definite on artificial turf for the baseball fields and softball fields. I think there's more momentum now, Mayor. I think the disagreement, I wouldn't even call it disagreement, is the director wants to do it at Bradley North, and I kind of think it should be at another ballpark, but that's a semantics kind of thing. But here in the near future, in the next couple of months, we can chat about that. It'll probably have to be in the next year's budget, but it would take a couple of months to get everything lined up. But just so you know, I've asked him to kind of put together a report on how many times tournaments were canceled this year, and there's tournaments that were canceled that no matter what, if you had artificial turf on the fields, you wouldn't have made the tournament. But there's times where he canceled that if he had artificial turf, then the tournament would have made. It was just a 30-minute rain shower, and it went through. And in my experience, after 30 minutes of rain, you can start playing. So just a heads up that this is an initiative we've talked about in the years. Now I think we're finally to a point where we can start putting pen to paper on that. All right, next thing, and just also know that Director Andy is working on some reports for us. Stormwater, they did a good job the other day. Then the tourism, that's hotel motel, and as the mayor said, we put a number in there, but their funding is really dictated by how well the hotel motel money does, and And the same thing goes with, Tri-State, even though they're in a different fund. Public transportation, et cetera, talked about that. Contributions for all the nonprofits, I think they were all the same. All right, that's everything I have for the general fund. Anything, last chance on the general fund. Then we get into the opioid. Make sure I got everybody. I don't want to miss anybody. All good on general fund. Mayor, I think that's it on general fund. Going to, unless you got anything. Opioid money. The only question I had there, you brought this up the other day. It's just really a footnote. And a note here, sorry. Again, up in Gatlinburg, they mentioned that most counties have formed their own little committee or opioid task force or something like that. We chose that we would keep it in-house and we granted out. But you mentioned the other day that you've included a new expenditure. It's the district attorney, his drug task force. I chatted with him briefly yesterday. McMinn County and Monroe County are also going to contribute. They're going through their budgeting process just like we are. I believe he said the same amount that you've put in there for him. So he told me he feels confident that they were for it. They just got to go through their process of budgeting like we're doing. So that'll be 3 counties out of the 4 counties. Polk County, apparently all their opioid money is going to their school fund. So that's,
Were they using buying vape detectors and things like that? I mean,
I don't know. I didn't really pursue the conversation that far. My question to him is, General Hatchett, I guess is his title, our fellow, because he's a district and county elected official. I said, are the other districts contributing the same amount, if not more? So did you know, because he doesn't see just Bradley County. He sees this whole district. And McMinn and Monroe County are going to contribute some of their opioid money to what you're putting $50,000 towards drug task force. I also asked him maybe next year if he would come and give us an update on how that's all going. So that's it on the opioid, unless you got something else.
when I had page 83 is what he's talking about with that 50,000. He sent a real nice letter that explained how it would go toward the fight of opioids too, which is what we're all about. So now we've got the county with the detectives doing the opioid investigations as well as the DA's drug task force. And I told him this. I said, my problem is the state kept half of the opioid money. They're only sending us approximately half, and they kept the other half to grant it out. So I told him, I said, you should not expect to be funded by the local governments totally. You need to be applying for those state grants because they've got a bucket sitting over there full of money, I can tell you. So that's why I was hesitant to do it, because he's a state agency. We don't want to start funding state agencies. But with opioid, if it helps the fight against opioids, and we've got the opioid money to do it with, it's not tax money, I think it's good use. And so that's why that 50 is on page 83 extra. And mention one other thing on page 84. The one thing I did different this year on those programs down there, you know, like Boys Club, blah, 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 those different things you give money to, I went ahead and plugged them in, but you still go through the process like always. You call all 5 of them in, make them justify what they've done this year and convince you they need it again next year. They may not convince you, and you zero it out. That 200,000 is still totally for you to get approved and to spend. I just went ahead and filled in the individual lines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, that's it for the opioid. Fund 111. And then law library, nothing to that. Although, just FYI, they are dipping into their fund balance. They have a very nice fund balance relative to their amount, but they are dipping into it. And so I guess my projection is in about 3 to 4 years, they're going to have to Chad, about, because they get funded through that dollar fee through the court system. LexisNexis is basically the biggest expense, which we have to do. So in about 3 years, the commission's gonna have to decide how they're gonna fund that by increasing that fee.
Well,
All right,
they're gonna be told at some point, you can't spend more than you're bringing in once that fund balance goes down. Right now, it's okay that they're requesting more, and I think they realize that, but they can request more because it's
we're talking about
pretty
the law
much
library.
a law library,
Yeah.
but still, they've got to stay within that fund balance, should be our position, and they're just gonna have to back off. They can't keep growing it every year, because they're growing their expenses faster than their fund balance, is what it amounts to.
All right, next one is the library, Fund 115. And they do have maintenance of effort. By the way, back, I forgot to mention, I was going brain dead. They said that up and got EMS, Adam, you may hear about this. EMS is now a required, it used to be, I can't believe it, but EMS was not a required service that a county had to. Now it is. I was sitting next to a commissioner, I think from Knox County. It is now required that counties provide EMS services either in-house or outsource it to a private company. And I remember him telling the instructor, you had to have at least one ambulance or something like that. So it is, EMS is now, you have a list of services you have to provide, jail, elections, stuff like that. EMS is now, I guess it was passed in the law last year. So, but my point, what I said to him was, we would never not have it anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant. It's kind of like 911. You don't have to have 911, quote unquote, by law, but we would never discontinue it. Same thing with library 115. The question I have, Mayor, is we project they should get everything that we put in the budget for them, right? I mean, so if their 701 is what we projected or put in there for their revenue, and it came in at 693, and then we're saying, then they requested the same amount, and then you put in 693 again, wouldn't you put 701?
But no, they have a budget. In other words, you approve an amount that they get. For this year, they're getting 755 in the proposal. It's costing us 772.
Well, I was just looking at current property tax.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it has nothing to do with the property tax in a sense. A percentage of our taxes fund it, but it funds the budget, and then we approve their budget, and we got to make sure they stay within it. And 4 or 5 years ago, they got out of whack and did what I was talking about a minute ago, ate up all their fund balance.
Yeah, I know.
And then when they were requesting their money, we had no money to give them because it's got to be funded out of that fund. So now we've got the fund balance where it needs to be, and I am proposing to give them one-time extra money this year because they got some capital projects going on. City and county has agreed to give them these two figures, but it can't be every year, because if we do, you'll see that fund balance. The fund balance is well, this year is projected to be 383. Next year is projected to be 373. So it's fairly much staying the same. We just can't keep overspending the amount that it brings in. But it's not a flow through. They don't get everything we bring in.
So that was that on there, and what you were referring to, the 50,000 on page 88.
Yeah, on 88.
The
I'm proposing to
50,000.
give them an increase from 690 to 705, plus a one-time capital money for their renovation project they've got going now. And that's the same, we're a 50-50, and that's something the city has to agree to, and they've agreed to do the same thing. So that's a 9% increase, but only for this year. Can't be every year.
Yes, sir.
No, it's 50 us, 50 them. They're getting $100,000 for their renovation project, and about a 3% increase in their operation money from city and county.
But it's not increasing the amount. I mean, we're basically dipping into their fund balance.
It's using fund balance,
Yeah,
right?
and
That's
they-
why I'm saying
they-
it can't continue every year, but
Right.
it's okay now because their fund balance is built back up where it's okay.
Yeah, and when they came to the budget hearings, they fully admitted that there's no sense in having a big fund balance. And if capital projects is a good place to use it.
Yeah,
What
that's
when
fine.
they told me the other day is that they're right in the process of now of having someone basically do all their estimates of the cost of this capital projects. And they will get back to us on what the actuals are.
And keep in mind too, we just got through with ARP money funding them
I know, and I told them
$65,000 or
that.
$70,000.
I told them that.
And I don't know if the city did any on that one, Louis, but
They-
we did out of ARP. They may have too, I don't know, but
They do. That was for the 100-year celebration thing.
yeah.
So just beware, they're gonna come, they are in the process of getting estimates. There's the history branch across the street, where they're doing this. 116, is any other questions on those? We're going pretty fast, but you guys like fast. 116, we don't really hear much about the landfill these days, so
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
we contribute to KAB. We had the litter, and a couple other things that come out of there. And then we have the money that goes, we'll talk about here, 189 in the fire.
You've got your tire cleanup money still in there. You've got your household hazardous waste money still in there. And you've got your air monitoring still in there.
Yeah, Commissioner Mason, we were talking about that Saturday on the hazardous. You had an idea. Oh, paint cans. Mayor, they're killing us on paint cans.
We take paint at the landfill, so we shouldn't be taking it to household hazardous waste.
Help me out. What was the concern you had?
I just suggested we cut it to like 8 or 10 cans because some people were bringing
500
truckload or a.
I mean, I can check to make sure they still are, but we required Republic to have paint recycling down there, and so why should we pay a huge amount of money to Clean Harbors to take paint off when we do it down there? At least I think we still are. I think
Well,
Republic
I think
still
what
is.
he's saying is there's an unlimited amount of paint cans.
Well, no, but they shouldn't be bringing any, is my point. They can go
Oh.
down there today and do it, free. If we accept it there, we gotta pay to get rid of it. And Clean Harbors is expensive. It's supposed to be for things that we can't get rid of any other time.
Oh.
But if you can go to the landfill and get rid of paint on a daily basis, you don't mind, Tim, check with them and see. Unless they've stopped,
Oh, well.
and if they're taking it on a daily basis like they were, then why are we paying to haul it off at Clean Harbors? Now, I know why we do it, because people bring it and we don't want to tell them no. But that's a cost, and it's very costly. Clean Harbors is expensive. That event the other day will cost us, I got the bill the other day, I think it was $90,000. I mean,
Well,
it's
if
a
you
lot.
want to limit the number of cans, you don't even want any cans.
I don't want any cans if they're
No,
still
you
doing
just
it at the
want-
landfill. Drive to the landfill and get rid of it free instead of us paying to get rid of it at Clean Harbors. Does that make sense? Am I saying it wrong? I mean, and that's how it used to be with electronics until we stopped. They would bring electronics over like crazy, and we were paying a fortune to get rid of them, and we recycled it at Perilous Road. But we're not now, so they justifiably brought a lot of them to them. But if we are offering the recycling, then they shouldn't be taking it that day. But it puts Tim and them in a hardship. I know he doesn't want to stand there and make everybody mad. What's
I don't know. They would find something we're doing funny.
what's
I don't know.
funny?
They're probably like we're getting in a 15-minute conversation about paint cans or whatever. I don't know.
Well, it's
Anyways.
expensive. I'm telling you, folks. The people of Bradley County spend a lot of money for Household Hazardous Waste Day. It's a great thing, but
You
it's
do what
supposed
you
to be to get rid of things that we can't
Whatever
get
you
rid of.
All right, moving on. Fund 124. You said that she was getting something. I heard you the other night, but I couldn't find it.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not the Ag Center. This is Tri-State. Sorry.
The Tri-State's like the library. They have a budget. Now, it's funded with hotel motel tax, but they don't get what hotel motel tax brings in. So therefore, they retain a fund balance all the time too. They only get what you fund them. We may bring in $2 and you fund them $1. Well, they only get the dollar. They don't get the flow through money. So that's why we have a fund balance there, and that's how we're able to pay their salaries for the first 6 months of the year too. We pay their salaries, they're county employees.
I know. Anything else? Nothing on Tri-State, like you said, from what I understand, they've had some great big shows out there.
Oh, yeah, they're doing good.
And they got some HCI money or something. All right, so that takes us to 128 art money, and I've got us at 1120. Art money or federal money is going to be a while, so probably more than 10 minutes. So my question is, do we want to break now for lunch? You just saw the pizza boy come through, or do we? Nothing worse than cold pizza. Okay. So you got to run home or whatever. All right. Oh, you told me the other day you did. Oh, okay, that's right. It only took a few minutes to take care of your problem? Oh. Cindy, what would you like to do? You want to eat now or you want to go? All right, so so we got basically 11:22. We'll come back at 11:55. All right. We got all the stuff in the conference room, drinks and stuff like that. All right. Where's that?